Alrighty, here we go. I, like Kevin, haven't done a lot of this stuff, so please bear with me a little bit. Alrighty, my name's Sam Heywood, electrician, and have a bit of a presentation here. This is my system that my dad and I built in the last couple of weeks of July. We've got a few other photos here and there, but we'll see how we go. Alright, first, a little bit of a disclaimer. I've been an electrician for 20 years, but I'm not a solar expert as such. I did work 11 years in the mining industry, and been down here in Manjimup since March last year. So we're just going to do the basics. A bit of a repeat there. Was working FIFO. Felt it was time for a change, especially when they want to stick things up my nose all the time. Wasn't interested in that. One of the last sites I worked up north was a military base in Exmouth. While I was working up there in November 2019, I had a stroke. That's a long story, but a blessing did come out of it. We made a claim on my trauma insurance, and that enabled us to move down to Manjimup. Bought the farm about 20 k's from here in Pirrip. The place is proper in the bush. It's 40 k's out of town. There's no electricity, no phone reception, no internet, no nothing. We're living in the shed. Very similar architecture to this one. Where are we up to? So it was going to be far too expensive for us to get the power put on Western Power. The closest power pole we know of was about 10 kilometres away. So off-grid was pretty much the only option for us. While the expense of installing the equipment is there, we won't have a bill anymore. And we'll also be independent, self-sufficient. Doesn't matter what Western Power does, we won't go off. And we also believe that the Lord's there to help us. He's provided us with a son. This is just a couple of photos of our property. This is our dam. It's quite large. It's about 50 metres wide and about 500 metres long. It's just along here. That's the dam wall on the boundary of the property. Next. This is the inside of the shed. What's when we're still moving in.
Really true when we say tin shed. You can see it's tin.
Exactly. But it's an 18 metres by 9 metre shed, and it has a toilet and shower set up in it, and a little kitchen. So it's very cold in winter and very hot in summer. But I had a little bit of an accident with my chainsaw, and I dropped a really big tree on the roof. Yes, but that's a long story too. That was on the 31st of October last year, and it's still not fixed. So that was fun and games. Very stressful day, that one. No, I got the water tank as well.
Sam, can I just add, because of that accident, we actually were paid out by the insurance, and we said, they wanted to fix it and said, can you pay us out? And they said, yeah, we can. We want to be paid out because we want to build a bigger tank. So they paid us out. We added $6 more grand, and we have now a 150,000 liter tank next to the shed, which is on that area where the tree fell. So out of a disaster came a blessing from the Lord, which is really good. Yeah.
Alrighty, let's get into the presentation now. Just sort of thought we'd start with a bit of the basics. We read lots of terms, things like cool, very good. Volts, voltage, so electrical force. Current is your flow of electrons measured in amps or amperes. This one is a bit of a joke. What is the unit of power? It's both a question and a statement, depending on how you spell it. In a DC circuit, to work out power, or watts, we just simply multiply the volts and the amps together. When you pay for your power through the grid, they usually measure it in how much power you use over time, watt hours, or a large unit being kilowatt hours, so 1,000 watts. Battery sizes, similar. You want to know how much current you're going to get out of it over time. You can convert between amp hours and watt hours based if you know the voltage of your battery. This is helpful. So larger cables carry more current, but copper's expensive. So you want to have a higher voltage so you can have lower current and smaller cables. So the little example I have there, we have a 12 watt system with 12 volts. We're going to have 1 amp. If we change that to a 48 volt system, we only need a quarter of an amp. And then obviously scale that up to a grid size system. That's why they have high voltage power lines. So they can have much smaller cables. Right, into the solar array. There's a few things to know here. So the panel design basically will give you the efficiency of the panel. So they're made out of silicon. The silicon is grown in a crystalline form. It takes time for it to grow into a larger crystal. So the most efficient panels are a monocrystalline design. They're blackish in colour, so you'll see on the more recently installed panels, they're more common now. But there's always the smaller crystals left over, so they weld them together and they become a bluish panel. But due to the higher resistance, because they're welded together, you'll have slightly less efficiency. But also the monocrystalline panels are a bit more expensive. So it's a trade-off on cost. You can have more poly panels or fewer mono panels, depending on the size of your roof, or if you're setting up in the paddock, or whatever you're doing, design of your system. Where to install? Most people in the city will put them on the roof because it's where they've got space. As you saw in our picture there, we put them in the paddock. Just ease of maintenance, we've got space. So there's also a lot more room for expansion in the future if we decided we needed more power. Being in the southern hemisphere, you want them facing north. And the angle of the panels from ground, same distance you are south of the equator. So manage them up 34 degrees. So ballpark, mine are about 30, 31 degrees. That's just where they ended up.
So latitude is the angle.
Latitude, yeah. Sorry? And away from shade, yes. It says on there. You can also get tracking systems. There's a couple of different designs of tracking systems. Basically, they mount all the panels on a frame that moves. So it starts in the morning facing east, and then it slowly tracks the sun around to the west over the course of the day. We didn't go for them because there is some maintenance issues with them. For instance, whether you go with a electric motor style one, or they have some that run on refrigerant gas. So just the heat of the sun drives it passively. But they have a few issues. You also want to mount your panels as close as possible to your control equipment because there's higher losses on the DC side than on the AC side. So once it goes past the inverter, you can transmit it a bit further. Same thing. One way of getting around that is to have larger cables, but more cost. Right, so if we're going to go off-grid, or even if you've got one in town, you can go batteries as well. There's many types of battery chemistries around. They all have their pros and cons. The one pictured in the top corner, which I'm covering, that's a lead-acid battery. You can only discharge them down 50%. If you do more than that, you can damage the battery. When you charge these lead-acid batteries, you have a little bit of electrolysis where you'll separate the water into oxygen and hydrogen. So you need to have ventilation, because if your hydrogen gets too high, you're going to explode, as hydrogen is quite explosive. They're an old technology, been around for quite a long time. That's what they use in like your mobile phone towers and things like that. And they can last 20 plus years if they're maintained properly, managed correctly, not over discharged or anything like that. From an environmental perspective, lead's not that good in the environment, but because there's an old technology, the recycling is there. You can drop your batteries off at the tip, or even in the bench shed in town, collects the batteries, and the lead, the acid, and the plastics are all recycled. which is a big drawback on your modern lithium batteries. The infrastructure's not there, and it's extremely expensive to do. Because it's not readily available. Your absorbed glass mat is a more modern version of a lead-acid battery. Have further depth of discharge, being 80%. It can also handle a faster charge up. One drawback, they don't quite last as long. And you need more of them than those lead-acid batteries in the picture there are quite large. They're 600 mil high by about 300 mil wide and 250 mil deep. So they're 141 kilos each. So not something you want to stick in your camper van. That is one of the advantages of lithium. They are light. And you can have a much larger depth of discharge, being not 90%. And there's no ventilation requirements. So if you were putting it in your four-wheel drive, for example, you would want to have, say, like a deep cycle lead-acid battery under the bonnet. But if you had a lithium battery in your car, you want to keep it in the car. For the two reasons we've just mentioned, the lead-acid battery will vent hydrogen, which you don't want in your cab, but the lithium won't handle the heat from your engine. So it will damage the battery. The reason why we went with lead-acid, or one of the reasons, the lithium batteries are still an unproven technology. Some will tell you they'll last 10 years, but it's more common that they don't last that long. The cheaper lithium batteries have what they call thermal events, which basically they catch fire. The battery management systems within the batteries are not as effective, and they get too hot. They have a really low impedance within the battery, so they let out quite a high temperature. And the other problem we have with that is you start pouring water on a lithium battery, you have hydrofluoric acid is formed, which is extremely dangerous. They use it in some industrial processes. It will actually eat into your bones. You won't even notice you got it on your skin before your bones are going to jelly. So if you get that stuff on you, you're getting an amputation for sure. So that's another drawback. But if it's a good quality product, hopefully you don't have any issues. As I fit on the bottom there's lots of different technologies. You can even use mechanical flywheels, so you're storing energy in a rotating mass. Then you can do water storage, so like hydro setup, things like that. So you pump the water up the hill. There's pumped hydro setups, and then run the water back down the hill and generate power from that. That's another big ball game after that. There's more photos of my little system. We had this little garden shed on the farm. We just poured a slab and moved it and put the batteries inside. It was a bit of a blessing. My dad came over in July and helped me build all of that. He's very handy. All up.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
When we were thinking of moving down to Manjimup, we actually went to WA Solar and asked them for a quote. They gave us $50,000 for the whole system.
That's the inverters and the battery chargers and everything.
Because Sam worked for a company in town that used to deal with WA Solar, they said we're happy to give it to you for 34. Wow.
So the chopping around, asking lots of questions is an advantage.
So how many batteries do you have?
12.
There's 12 batteries.
What does that run?
That'll run everything. We got 6 kilowatts of panels, and the battery itself is 1360 amp hour. So it's designed for autonomy. We'll get on to this. We'll keep going, and hopefully I'll answer your question as we go. So for those 12 batteries, 1.7 tonne. We actually poured the slab, lifted them in with a front end loader, and then built the shed around it, so we didn't have to drag them in there. We left them on the pallets and everything. They're sitting in there. Alrighty, just a little bit about battery design and sizing. basically, the bigger depends what your load is. So if you want to run air conditioning and things like that, you're going to need a bigger battery bank to store enough power for it, especially when the sun goes down. So we've got here how much watts your load is, how much current you want to draw. The batteries are only designed to discharge at a certain rate. So if you want to have a higher load, you need to have more batteries in parallel to get that same current draw. Sizing the battery for autonomy duration. So that's how long you can be running on your batteries when the sun's not around. You know, if it's overcast for a week and you're not getting much input from your solar panels, are you going to run out of power? Our system should last a good 5 days, depending on how much power we're going to use from it. Obviously, you want to manage the thing, slow down a little bit on your power draw if you know it's going to be wet for a long time. On those little diagrams next door, it talks about your series versus parallel. Seriesing batteries together, so joining them one after other in a line. So basically, you've had 3 batteries here, you just go positive, negative, positive, negative, positive along there. You'll add the voltages. So that's how you get from so you have 4 12-volt batteries will give you 48 volts. Running them in parallel will give you more, you add the amp hours. So if it's 100 amp hour battery, you run 2 in parallel, you now have 200 amp hour. That'll give you a larger capacity over, for your battery bank. Does that answer your question? For the batteries? Yeah? Sorry, the cost. We talked about that, didn't we? Yeah. Yeah. I can't really say that. It's a sort of technology that's changing all the time. So more modern technology is a bit more expensive, a bit older technology can be cheaper, but it depends. You've got to shop around a bit. All right. So this is a little bit more about the design of your whole system. More panels versus more batteries. Panels are generally cheaper than the batteries. So you also got to remember that in most places, as soon as the sun comes in the morning, you're not going to start generating a significant amount of power. You generally get 5 hours in the winter time where the sun is sufficiently high enough with enough power coming in but that it's actually going to charge. So yeah, we're on here, but more solar panels are going to give you a better autonomy in that you can oversize your solar array so you can actually still get some charge in your batteries on a day when it's overcast. Yes, also on your battery paneling, depends on your load. How much power do you want to run? If you're just running a few LED lights, your fridge, freezer, you don't need a whole lot. All right, there's a few different types of charge controllers around. I have a photo of one coming up shortly. PWM, which is an older technology, pulse width modulation. You need to make sure that they're matched to your batteries more closely. The more modern one, which is way more efficient, is your MPPT, maximum power point tracking. That's what most people use these days. So 30% more efficient, and it will allow much higher panel voltages. So with your PWMs, you might have a panel that's outputting 12 volts. You'll have that PWM there with a 12-volt battery. That's your system. Whereas with your MPPTs, you could have 5 panels in series, and they're putting out 32 volts each. So you're going to be 160 volts. Okay? And your MPPT will be able to manage that and put it into your 12-volt battery system, or in our case, a 48-volt system, without damaging anything. But obviously, when the overcast days come along, you're not going to get that full 32 volts out of your panels. So then it still manages the current voltage so that you will charge your batteries and won't damage anything. All right. So we've already touched on that a bit there with the sizing of your batteries. Yeah, so you want to see what voltage you're running within your system. So that'll give you how much current you're going to get from the calculations we had at the front. Yeah, next. The other thing to consider is how you use your power. Most people go to work in the morning and they don't come home till the afternoon when the sun's already gone back down again. So on this little chart here, it's a little bit hard to read. The green is what you're inputting into the grid. So there's a grid connected system. The grey is how much power you're consuming directly from your panel. So this person obviously is at home a little bit. And the consumption. So here's at night. This is 12 midnight. They've got out of bed and they've made their breakfast. They've used a bit of power. Then there's pretty much just a fridge ticking on and off. Maybe they left the aircon on. And in the evening they've come home, they've turned the TV and the microwave and everything on. They've cooked dinner and watched Netflix. And then find my little picture there on the bottom there. It drops back down when they've gone to bed. So you want to be using your power during the day when the sun's up. A lot of solar inverters and things will have enough power in your system where you can use the power and charge your battery at the same time. So you're not always drawing on your battery. Because obviously if you're going to use your power all at night, you're going to need a bigger battery. All right, inverters. This picture here in the bottom corner, that's actually our setup inside the little shed. This is just my switchboard. We've got AC breakers at the top, DC ones at the bottom. This is our battery charger, the MPPT, and that's our inverter. Our inverter's a bit bigger than we really need at this stage. It's a 8 kilowatt, but we only have 6 kilowatts panels. So we have the top one there, the string inverter. We just have one inverter that does all the panels. There's other system designs where you can have micro inverters, so one per panel. So this is one here. It can be more efficient, especially if you have shade issues where some of the panels are shaded for part of the day, but it is also a bit more expensive because you have one per panel. You could have 20, 30, 40 panels, depending on how big your system is. Some inverters also, like this Furanius one here on the end there, is also designed where you can actually run loads directly off it without batteries connected to it, which is not all inverters will do that. Some also will require to be connected to the grid. What have we got? Also, selecting the right inverter will depend on what voltage you've chosen for your battery array and how big a load you want to hook up to it. There's also options as to how you hook things up. The first one on the left is obviously it's a grid connected system. This person may have had their solar system installed first and then later on they've added the batteries. Rather than getting a new inverter on their panels, they've got a second inverter that just does from the batteries. That's not that common in its design as far as I'm aware. Yes?
Is it still illegal to run your system on batteries if you're connected to the grid, if the grid goes out?
I believe so. I think that may be changing because there is new technologies out there. Yes? Yeah, you can get generator changeover switches, which Benji's talking about, where you're never going to push back to the grid because it's a 3-position switch. You'll have Western Power off and then generator, or in this case the solar system feeding in. So they're always completely decoupled from each other. You can't backfeed into the grid using that system. This one on the right, that's more similar to the system we have. You can also choose to run some loads directly off the DC. So if you have 12-volt lighting, things like that, rather than running it through the inverter. Same thing again, you'll have to design that specifically for the size load that you have. You know, it's a longer run of DC cables is more susceptible to voltage drop. So you might have 12 volts coming out your battery, but by the time you get to your light, you've only got 10, so your light will be dull. One way of getting around that is more copper, bigger cables. That's why AC was chosen as the power grid, because you have less problems with voltage drop. Yes. Questions? I'm sure there's going to be plenty. Yes.
There's someone who's got, say, 16 panels on the roof,
Yep.
and it's currently fed to a system.
Yep. To the grid, yeah.
What do you do with, if you want the batteries? Obviously, you need another unit in here.
Yep.
Can it be done, and is that legal?
Yes, it can be done. You probably have to get a solar expert involved in that one. Other people have also asked questions about, can we just get the grid cut off and go off grid completely? I think that may be an advantage in the near future, especially with the whole idea of shutting down the coal-fired power stations and all the rest. The grid's going to become quite unstable, and blackouts are going to become more common. So to answer your question, yes, you can, but I'm not exactly 100% sure on how it's done.
I asked a simple question because I thought, what we've got here, and the guy said because of how old the system is, what my system is quite old, even though I've got a larger inverter to upgrade, we just said now if the system's cheaper and better and more efficient, then better off to get a new one for standing on.
Yeah. A lot of your grid connect solar inverters don't have the capacity to put a battery in them, because it's an extra feature that you're not going to use, so it will make it more expensive. Yes.
What I did in my house is I bought a second-hand solar panel system that's connected to the grid, so I just used their solar panels, and I bought a grow-watt off-grid inverter, 5 kilowatt inverter. It can run without batteries or with batteries, and it's off-grid, and it's only $1,500, and it's all in one: inverter, MPPT, and controller.
So there's many options out there. Like I wrote on the battery page, there is many different chemistries, different ideas out there that are all being developed, and it's just to do some research. That's one of my recommendations. I don't know if I've got any more slides. No, that's it. It's a tricky one. I did, as my wife has said before, I did get a company rate. So, not including labour and my dad's labour as well, was roughly $50,000 is what we've spent on the system we have. 50. Yeah. That's another thing I haven't written on my slideshow. A lot of people also have generators for battery backup or whole system backup. There's a couple of schools of thought on that. You can have a generator that's roughly twice as big as your power draw is, so it'll run your house while at the same time charging your batteries. My question on that is, why can't I just run my house on the generator and wait for the sun to come up? Say for us, we were quoted for a 12 kilowatt generator for $18,000. So we didn't go for that one at this stage, but I do have a small 6 kilowatt generator that would run our house, but would not be enough to run to charge the batteries at the same time. So that'll give you a longer autonomy time. Do you have a question?
Yeah, just thinking, say somebody who's not real knowledgeable on, say, second-hand solar panels.
Yep.
What would you do? Because you know, obviously, there's a lot out there for sale now.
Yes. Our panels were sold second-hand. They were about 2 years old. We got them for $50 a panel, which was quite a good deal. It's a bit silly. The government has rebates for solar, and you can claim them more than once. And that's where the newer second-hand panels are coming from. People are installing a system 2-3 years later going, I'm going to upgrade this, selling off the old system and then putting a new one in, claiming the rebates again. I don't think that's quite right, but that's what they do. For older panels, you need to be a little bit careful because the older panels are older designs, they're less efficient, and sadly, they do get damaged in the sun. So over time, they lose efficiency. Some panels will claim 10% per year. So if you have a 10-year-old panels, they may have lost a lot of their efficiency. So you may get them quite cheaply, but they might not do the job for you either. Yes?
I've got solar panels at home, and my electricity bill always seems to still be high.
Mhm.
One day, the guy came to check the meter, and I don't know, I asked him, I said something about the panels to him, did I need to do something different? He had a look, like about 10 o'clock in the morning, and he had a look, he said, oh, you're not generating anything. He came back out, and there was the tiniest bit of shade from the neighbours' tall trees.
Yep.
You know, they should have moved my system up further.
That's
I
it.
didn't know anything about, if there's a tiny bit of shade, nothing is working.
Yep. That's the difference between a string inverter and the microinverters. So you may only have shade on a quarter of your panels, but it's going to affect all of them. Cut the tree down. Talk to. So you may need to look at microinverters rather than the string inverters for that design.
Depends on the connection on the solar, still parallel.
Yeah, parallels or series as well. That's right. Yeah, so you may need to also rewire your panels, to rearrange the wiring of your panels to make a bit of a difference as well. Yes.
I just wanted to just bring up with the lithium batteries. I know you're saying that they're effective and they got their faults. And like we used them like that. The military used them. I don't know if they still do because it was probably about 10 years ago.
Yep.
So like, they used them. And they seem to be alright. So they wouldn't use them if they were
Yeah, that's
running.
yeah. How long did they last for? Do you know?
I can't remember. We used them in the radios.
Yep.
So you can throw them around and that a bit, but what they didn't warn us about, I haven't seen it happen to anyone. They work all right, because you might get your hands on some sheep or something, I don't know, you might come across them, so use them, but they can leak certain lithium batteries, so if they leak, they let out some emission, and it can make you nauseous and vomit everywhere. If it's in an enclosed car or something with you, or an enclosed room, it could go real bad. So you need them in the back of a tray or something, or not in your room while you're sleeping at night. It's all right doing the fresh air, but in an enclosed space, if they leak,
You got issues.
yeah.
That's it. You know, a lot of your small electronics, like your mobile phones and that, have a lithium polymer battery. They don't last forever either. Like, how often have you changed the battery in your mobile phone? I generally get 2.5 years out of them before they're starting to drop off in capacity. Yeah, it's not a perfect world, unfortunately. Things do wear out, and
And also battery exploding or on fire, it's more common than lithium ion.
yeah, that's
But
true
now
too.
with lithium iron phosphate,
That's right.
the newer
Different chemistries and different designs.
With the batteries, that's lithium ion. You have batteries exploding on your phone if it's overcharged.
That's correct.
Actually, Sam, that's what I was just going to say. Ben just said assault in fire and rescue,
Mhm.
and most of the fires are guys soap, and they always completely in batteries.
Wow. In garages, yeah.
Chinese
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's
Lithium ion, not lithium ion.
that's it. They also recommend if you are going to have a lithium battery installed in your garage, you should have bollards around it. Because if you accidentally run into it with your car, you're going to have big troubles. They can explode and all sorts of things. Yeah. Even the famous Tesla cars, all the batteries are in the floor for weight distribution. If you're driving around on a hot day with all the heat coming off the road, they have issues with them, catching fire and all sorts of crazy things. Pretty much. Alrighty, any more questions?
With your system,
Mm.
so where you worked it out,
Yep.
you went through what appliances you had,
Yep.
and your lighting, and
Yep. how many, how big the loads are, how often you use them. There's quite a few different calculators around. There's some online. I can't recommend exact sites, but there is plenty of them on there. Solar system size calculator. Yeah. Okay. Brian, yep.
Yeah, you might have said this before, Sam, but what's the expected lifespan of your batteries?
20 plus years. As long as we don't over discharge them and keep the water topped up, they will last. I do know people who have got similar batteries to ours that are over 20 years old.
Thank you.
No worries.
How do you check that you're not overcharging them, over-discharging them?
You need to have battery monitoring. So I didn't put that on my slideshow. Yeah, definitely I need to have a charge monitor on your phone, on your system. That also, it'll manage your batteries, but also give you a feedback on how much you're drawing from them. And that's another thing also. Thank you very much. We also recommends that you need to have the batteries fully charged at least once every 2 weeks. So you can't just keep them at 80% discharge or 80% or full charge. They need to be fully charged just for maintenance purposes. Once a fortnight.
So do you need a generator then with this system in case you discharge too much?
Yes, most systems are designed to have a generator backup. It's one thing we haven't got yet on our system, just for the expense mostly. Yes.
I don't think you told us which way your solar panels were facing. Are they north?
Yes, north at 30 degrees. Can we have this slideshow back up?
I might have missed that.
No, you're all right. Backwards. It's the first slide. Can we go back to the start? I'll go back. All right. Back. Oh, it's not working now. There we go. Keep going. Back to the first slide. Yeah. So that's my system there.
So that's 30 degrees, Sam?
Yeah, 30 degrees. So I built this frame here out of patio tubes, and set it at 30 degrees or 31 degrees. They recommend same latitude you are south from the equator. So manage them up to 34 degrees, 30 degrees, close enough.
I see some people have got solar panels facing more than one direction.
Yes.
Wouldn't you have that issue that you're talking about before with the shade?
Yes, they would, yeah. I've seen them where they have some facing east and some facing west. So they're going to have morning sun on one and afternoon sun on the other. So that would come into the design of your system. I also know one guy who actually designed his system purposely like that. He's out in the middle of a paddock and he had them standing up nearly straight so that he could catch the morning sun as soon as it comes above the horizon. He's generating. And he has twice as many panels as his system can actually handle. But because some of them are facing east and some are facing west, they're never both generating at the same time. It's actually quite a nice system he has set up. Yep. That's it. But his system was nearly 20 years old and he'd done a lot of playing with it. And some solar installers are like, wow, I never even thought of that. Or how did you even get that to work? And he's just like, it's quite simple. Because the sun moves it, it doesn't work. It doesn't cause a problem. We couldn't do that on our system because of all these trees.
Oh, they have to go.
they will be going.
No, I've already asked for permission.
Yeah, we have a permit to clear some of those trees. Yeah.
Actually, in the morning, it actually shade.
Yeah. The ones over this side will be going, but the ones on that side are actually in the state forest over our boundary fence, so they're behind the panels anyway.
So you just want to watch which way those trees.
Yes, definitely. I'm getting a professional out for those ones. All right, any more questions?
I found a forum on Facebook Market. They're based in Perth, and they're solar power system provider. And that's Altec. That's a forum where you can ask questions to. They're based in Canberra. Oh, Welsh School. They have an actual shop in Welsh School. Altec.
It's off the side of the screen over here.
Off-grid lithium supercapacitor stacker.
We can't see it on there.
It's off the edge of the screen on this one.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
ALT dash spec.
What's in there? Oh yeah, ALT dash tech.
Yep.
Community off-grid.
That's
So
it.
That's in Facebook.
Been in jail too much. I like that.
They don't have website, only Facebook. But they are in Welshpool.
Do they have a phone number that you could actually physically contact them?
Yes, they do.
Is that how you use Benji?
Yes, that's where we get our solar panels and inverters and charge controllers.
Alt-Tech. ALT-TECH.
I can give you the info. Info later. I'll type this on here.
I think it might be. How long were we speaking for?
You've done well, mate. You've helped us gain some time.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I hope you've got something out of what I've said.
Just mention WA Solar.
Yeah. The place where we bought ours was a mob called WA Solar in Osborne Park.
Osborne Park as well.
Yeah.
So that's the contact number there. So what's that? So WA Solar?
Yeah.
Someone here was trying to write down that phone number.
Sorry. There.
Right. Oh. I'm going to be able to read it. What's the number?
All 10.
Oh, don't make me write too much. Oh, that pen don't work. Which is not here.
Any more on that back track there?
Oh, there is. Yep. There we go.
So Sam, you have to come down, and sort this out.
I'll have to do I'll have to do some official training course, I think. Oh, 08. Oh, that's not 61. That's not right.
Sam, have you ever looked at hydroelectric and how that would compare?
I have done.
If you own a dam and you've got big hills,
I have looked into that a little bit at our place. Where our solar system is set up is about 17 metres above our dam. The one I looked at was only like, I think it was 800 watts, but it needed something like 7,000 litres an hour or something. So you needed a vast amount of water. Yeah. But yeah, for our system, we'd have to pump it up the hill to get enough fall. Generally, people who I've seen online and things that I've done, hydro setups, are using it off a creek. So they're taking it at the top of the putting it into a dam and then running it down the hill back into the creek. So they've got plenty of water.
So that's the WA Solar.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's quite interesting actually with a lot of the greenies get quite wound up about the idea of pumped hydro. They seem to think you can run the water down the hill and make power, pump it back up the hill and have some left over for use elsewhere. It doesn't work that way at all. With the losses within the system, you're never going to be able to do it. In the Snowy Hydro in New South Wales, they have been doing pumped hydro for a very long time, and they actually use it for load for the coal-fired power stations at night when everyone's in bed. So they have all their boilers are still running and all ready to go, so that when people wake up in the morning, they can release the water, because it takes out this peaks and troughs. So in the morning when everyone gets up and turns the kettle, the toaster and the microwave on at the same time, there's a big spike. And then obviously when everyone's driving to work, this comes back down again. And then once the factories start up, and then there's some more, sort of more even across the rest of the day than there is at night. Yeah, but yeah, That's the modern design, but as I was just saying that the older style, which is still used, actually uses the dirty power to pump it back up the hill. But they just use it to stabilise the grid, because you can turn the hydro one straight away. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, when people are getting up, they can just throw open the valve and the power's on. Where if you need to ramp up a massive coal-fired power station that get the boilers up to temperature and the pressure and the lines and everything, it takes time.
Yeah, thank you, Sam.
That's it. Thank you, everyone. I hope you got something out of it.
These guys who have